Today, I'd like to welcome to the program Andrew Davis, founder of PopAnimeComics.com and host of the interview podcast Pop Anime Comics Lounge, and a Comic-Con panelist. Welcome, Andrew.
Oh, man, I'm excited to be here, and thank you for having me on.
No problem, no problem. So, just getting right off the bat here, tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
So, I'm 26. I like long walks on the beach at sunset. I created a website called Pop Anime Comics where I write about anime comics and pop culture, and primarily wrestling as well. And then out of that spun a entire interview-based podcast where I was doing interviews written form, and then I developed a podcast. And while all that was going on, I was doing all these public speaking events at Comic-Cons and anime cons, and it just kind of all led down the same path where now I'm running that as a side hustle, and one thing boosters another thing, and it's just led me down this amazing path, and this is just another stepping stone that I'm crossing into and being on this show. And I'm sure we're going to talk about it, and we can unpack all that, but I don't want to steer this too quickly.
Yeah, and so what's been your geeky inspiration for it? Like, I know that obviously you have a deep inspiration for the pop culture and anime for sure.
So I was growing up, I just fell in love with Toonami, and I was like 4, 5, 6 watching Dragon Ball Z, loved Saturday morning cartoons, and most kids grew out of it, and I never grew out of it, and I just fell in love with it. I didn't know what anime was, so I first fell in love with anime, and I didn't know what it was. I just thought, oh man, this is a really cool style and really cool cartoon, and I'm watching something like Outlaw Star at the age of 7, 8, and I just fell in love with it, and it never stopped, and it hasn't stopped to this day. And then as you get older, you start wanting to say, hey, I want to be part of this, but I'm not an animator, I'm not a comic writer, I'm not an artist. What can I do? And I started on YouTube, just breaking it down, and then my story is unique, and I'll give this short, condensed version. I got demonetized on YouTube before getting demonetized was cool. And so I got demonetized 2013, 2014 realm, and then I just said, hey, I'm doing this on YouTube. I'm not making any money. Let me see if I can make some money by creating a website. And then, as stated in the intro, just giving a little bit of background, that led to the podcast. And at the same time, I was doing all these panels. And with the panels, I just didn't like what anybody was doing at a con. And I thought I could do a better job than they can. And I don't want to sound egotistical or boost my ego, but I feel that with a lot of the panels I do, I wouldn't say I'm better, but I'm providing a different light on a topic. And so that was the inspiration on that side, where I just thought I could shed a light in a different way, and people could have, oh, that's really interesting, I didn't think of it like it that way type of moment.
Yeah, that's a little bit of a interesting development, kind of joining a convention and being a panelist and getting to bring to light new questions instead of what you normally hear, which is a lot of the same repetition across various conventions and panels. So what are some interesting panels that you've been a part of?
So I created this little baby called Exploring Dystopia Through Attack on Titan, The Walking Dead, and Fahrenheit 451. And I'm all by myself when I do panels. So I'm a one-man show. I do the entire panel by myself. And that is one of my most interesting panels because I'm comparing and contrasting those three works. And we're getting into a lot of the core ideas. We're comparing sometimes one or two of them, how they're similar, how they're different. And people have a real... They love it because they love Attack on Titan, which is a very popular anime. The Walking Dead is an extremely popular comic. They sell anywhere from 40,000 to 70 or 80 plus thousand issues every single month.
Oh, wow.
As a comic book. And it might be a little bit less right now because it's off of its heyday a little bit. But even still, and then the TV show is attracting over 10 million people every single week when it's on. And those are the ratings at the TV show The Walking Dead. So these are popular works. And then Fahrenheit 451 is just a classic book. And so when I break that down, I give a lot of insight into things, and people are like, oh, I didn't even think of that. I didn't see that. And I did it. The best one I did was at Anime NYC, and their first convention, I think, in 2018. And one of the cool things about that was the room was silent. It was packed with 200 plus people, and I could have dropped a pin because everybody in that room was completely engrossed because they were like, I'm hearing this for the first time. And about 6 months, and I did the panel prior to that, and the actual date is slipping, but it's on my website, on my panel list. And about a year later, Tony Moore did a special cover for the Attack on Titan manga. And so arguably I was one of the first people, if not the first people, to have a public event and a public forum actually coming up with this idea. And arguably, and if somebody wants to prove me wrong, they can, but I'm going to take credit for it for right now. I invented this concept and I introduced it in a public forum first in the United States, comparing Attack on Titan to The Walking Dead to Fahrenheit 451. Nice. And so that's my most interesting panel I've done, and arguably it was also my fourth panel I did at a convention, and the first time I did it, I sold it out too, and there were paid speakers who didn't have sold out rooms because most panels don't get paid, and it's very enjoyable when you're not getting paid and you're the new kid on the block and you're more or less kicking at the asses of people who are getting paid and who went out and had to pay and hire and work with their agent, and you're kicking their ass with a better idea as a newbie. Because there's nothing more satisfying than that feeling. And I knew it. The second the room was just filling up, and I'm sitting up at the front of the room when I first did it, and row 1 gets filled up, row 2 gets filled up, row 3 gets filled up, and then it keeps going. I'm like, oh my God, I can do this as a hobby and possibly make money off of this.
Yeah, that's definitely interesting when you discover something that you can do really well for the first time. You're like, I could probably turn this into a moneymaker.
Oh, I'm not talented at all. It just happened that I created a concept and that I did the research. And the first time I did it, it was good. It wasn't great. Now I've done it maybe like 6, 7 times. It's really good, and I know my craft. And, it's just, I'm not that smart. I really am not. I just happen to have thought of an idea, and nobody was doing it. And I thought it was an obvious idea. And I still think it's an